Good morning and welcome to Renew a Daily Devotional for You. My name is Jessica and I am a member of the College and Career Ministry. Today's devotional will be in 1 Peter 4:15 through 17. But let none of you suffer as a murderer or as a thief or as an evildoer, or as a busybody in other men's matters. Yet if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God on his behalf. For the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of God, and if it first begin at us, what shall the end of them that obey not the gospel of God? The title of this devotional today is Look Inward First. It is easy for us to look around and find people doing things that are worthy of judgment and condemnation. Most days, we only need to watch a few minutes of news before we see someone being praised and held up as an example, not in spite of, but because they are doing something evil. Yet while it is simple to judge them for what they are doing or not doing, we must never forget that the first place we should look for problems is not in the lives of others, but in our own lives. Jesus said, "Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote of thy brother's eye." And that comes from Matthew 7, verses 4 and 5. Often we magnify the faults and flaws of others while giving ourselves a pass. But that self-deception does not change the fact that the sins of our own lives are still real and still need to be dealt with, no matter how we may excuse them. There needs to be a willingness and an honesty to evaluate our own conduct in light of God's truth. Rather than relying on the fact that we may not be as bad as someone else to excuse our behavior, Paul wrote, "For if we judge ourselves, we should not be judged," which comes from 1 Corinthians 11:31. To sum it all up, God expects us to look to his standard rather than the behavior of those around us to determine our obedience to him. From this devotional, it just reminds me that we need not to live in the spirit of comparison. A lot of us, myself included, are too busy pointing fingers at people when in fact we have more fingers pointing back at us rather than pointing out to the world. We are instructed to look at ourselves before we can even look at someone else. None of us are perfect, and the only person we should be comparing ourselves to is Jesus. Like the song says, do they see Jesus in me? Not do they see Jennifer in me or Peter in me. We're not even called to compare ourselves to some of the greatest people that we hear about in the Bible. So we just need to focus on ourselves instead of focusing on others. Don't spend so much time watching TV, scrolling on social media, and looking at all the news, because we're just filling ourselves with the garbage of the world. We often hear the phrase garbage in, garbage out. So if we're filling ourselves with other people, we're gonna act like them, whether we know it or not. We need to be in our word, reading and comparing ourselves to the one true perfect person that is Jesus Christ. And then we can become more like Christ. So thank you for joining me this morning on Renew, and we will see you again tomorrow morning.